Good evening, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
And we welcome you to our Twilight Talks on the Psalms. And tonight we are in Psalm 78, verses 17 through 20. Tyler?
But they sinned even more against him by rebelling against the Most High in the wilderness, and they tested God in their heart by asking for the food of their fancy. Yes, they spoke against God. They said, "Can God prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, he struck the rock so that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide meat for his people?"
All right. Go on ahead and read the first half of verse 20. Well, yeah, just read 21.
Therefore the Lord heard this and was furious, so a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they did not believe in God and did not trust in his salvation.
All right. So, this psalm is primarily a recounting of the events of Israel in the desert with Moses when they came out of Egypt. It's definitely interesting because this is, even though it was written through the hand of Asaph, you need to understand we're about 500-600 years that side of it. So this is the way that it's being recorded 6 centuries after the events. And some of what's in here, you're going to say, I didn't quite read that when I read Exodus or or Numbers or Deuteronomy. And you're right. Some of it's not exactly quite like it is. And this is, when I read this, I say, this is God's perspective on it. This is the mind of God about those events. You say, well, no. Moses' record of it is the record of the historical events as they were occurring, or within a very short period of time. 6 centuries later, now we understand what was going on from God's perspective of how God was taking all of it, and God's interpretation of it. Don't ever confuse the writing of the historical event at the time with what God's full take on something was. This is one of those things on inspiration that people don't really comprehend, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Bible record lies? Is the Bible filled with lies?
Only people who tell them being specifically called a liar and saying they lied to whoever.
The Bible is a factual record of the lies of the liars that it records.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Bible contain falsehoods and untruths? The answer is yes. It factually records the falsehood or the untruth. So when you're reading this psalm, keep that in mind. And it's an interesting thing. They had walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. They had seen the 10 plagues. They had abundant stuff. And then they still said, can he prepare a table for us? Can he give us bread? Can he give us meat? And it's a funny thing that it's called What They Crave, because one of the, I don't know if, have you been doing the daily Bible reading that we have for the church?
Sporadically. I've been doing my own
sporadically. All right. Well, if you wouldn't have been doing it sporadically, a couple days ago in Deuteronomy, we came across the passage where God said, when you come into the land and there's a meat you crave, eat all of it that you want. I don't care. And I find it interesting that here God is like, they crave this stuff. And he said, well, how come God wouldn't let them have meat in the wilderness? God was trying to prepare them with manna for a multitude of things, but he was getting their bodies back on track for health and wellness long term. He was preparing them and getting them ready to take an entire nation. And, the military, for the most part, had very specific diet for a long time of what you would eat. And in boot camp, they have very specific diet that's designed for one thing: your maximum nutrition, efficiency, and physical well-being for boot camp. That's why when someone comes out of boot camp, they're like, that's the healthiest I've ever been. Well, dude, it wasn't just the exercise, it was the diet. Well, same here. And what does it say? God was angry with them because they had no faith in God and they did not trust his saving power. So, if you want to be on the wrong side of God, don't believe what he said. Don't believe what he said. So, as you're reading through this, keep that verse in mind. They had no faith and they did not believe in his saving power. Do you have some other thoughts on this?
No, sir.
With that, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
and we bid you good night.